Hi, everyone, and welcome to the She Rocks virtual red carpet. And we're here with Kim Warnick.
Hello.
Hi, Kim. How's it going?
It's going really well. It's nice to be here. How are you?
It's great. Look, you got all dressed up and you had somewhere to go.
Yeah, all the way to my computer desk. It was really exciting.
Exactly. Well, but how does it feel? Talk to me about well, first of all, talk to me about your involvement or any past involvement with the She Rocks Awards. Were you aware of, and how did you get involved with the She Rocks Awards?
Yeah, so it's fairly new to me. I knew of the She Rocks Awards, but what I sort of work on in the industry is activism. I do a lot of work around women's rights and girls' rights and around sexual violence prevention in the music industry. And
Yes.
so know a lot about women in the industry and a big fan of the work of She Rocks Awards, but it's definitely new for me to be on this side of it.
So yes, because now you're a musician.
I'm
So
not. I'm
you're
not.
not at all.
Yeah.
No, you've not been like. I've now talk to me. Then let me start over again. Sorry. Talk
Yeah.
to me about like how that translates for women, especially if you're in for activism, or what your experience is that you've noticed with women in the industry, music industry in particular.
So the music industry women are amazing. Like it's really strong, powerful, incredible people that I get to work with. But yeah, it's often sort of like you have to be that strong to make it. Like it's really hard to make it in this industry, regardless of your gender, but especially if you're a woman. It's a tough industry. It's very male dominated and just it can be harsh sometimes. So the ones who make it and who we know are just incredibly strong women who I'm glad to get to know.
Yes. What do you think the special sort of challenges are for women in the industry, in the music industry in particular?
Yeah, I think some of it, especially on the live side of it, is just it's the performance and the touring, and you're sort of living and working with all the same people all the time, and that can be really challenging. And it's not a professional work environment in the same way, which in some ways is really fun. Like we don't need to make it so cut and dry, but that can also bring these challenges of people crossing lines or sort of putting people in really challenging positions that you might not face if you're going to an office every day.
Okay. What would something like that be for the person? Maybe there are like, let's hope there are some roadies out there who are watching this or something. Like, what do you think the common missteps are that people make that would be something that would, maybe they're not realizing that they're being insensitive to what a woman's environment.
Yeah, I think one big one is there's a lot of just like instantly hitting on any of your coworkers who are women. And I think that it's not to say you can't ever find workplace romance. But you should be really careful about it and not treat your colleagues as like a dating buffet. And so that's, I think, one of the big ones is sort of, and I hear this all the time, and people aren't necessarily doing it to be mean. They think it's flattering or it's just a way to connect when they also aren't getting the chance to meet people outside of work either if they're touring all the time. But at
Yes.
the end of the day, these women are there to work. And when they're seen as like a sexual object first and a worker second or third or fourth somewhere down on the list, it's really hard to show up and do your job.
That would be very difficult. Can you tell us a little bit about calling all, I was saying counting all crows. Tell us a little bit more about calling all crows and what initially is helping, the music industry change.
Yeah, so Colonial Crows was founded about 13 years ago now, and we do a bunch of things. So we do a lot of work for women and girls outside the music industry. We're working with musicians who want to use their platform to make change in the community, and really love doing that work. So we partner with other nonprofits and help people, whether it's fundraise or raise awareness or do service, whatever it is, really integrating that in to their music and their into their work. But this work that we're doing around sexual violence prevention in the music industry, we've been doing for about 3 years now. And that started because we were seeing it right at home. We were seeing this violence being done and looking around for resources, and there really just wasn't anyone tackling this head on. So I have a background in sexual violence prevention and response, and have been in the industry. So we sort of combined that to start working with venues and festivals and artists and really everyone who puts together these incredible events to think about how we can make them safer. And for the most part, it's been really positive feedback. You know, people don't want to create trauma or violence for people in their gatherings. It's really upsetting to learn that someone was hurt at a show you helped put together. And so the
Yes.
chance to be proactive and to create a safer environment, a lot of people are jumping at that chance.
Now, 2020 was a very different year for all of us, right? In particular. How did that affect the work that you were doing too? Because obviously, we're at home. So, and there's a lot of concerts, I mean, most of these people are relying on touring and being a musician. How were you able to sort of pivot your work aspect for that?
Yeah, so I mean, part of the beauty of working with artists is the creativity in this industry. So while we weren't able to gather in person, people found ways to gather online, whether it's a live stream or putting together like really interesting music videos that are more produced than maybe a live stream, and finding ways to still build that connection in creative ways that were sort of forced into, but ended up working. So we've been working with artists on some of these virtual shows or gatherings, or bringing their fan base online to do advocacy together around an issue, or to learn about how to support domestic assault survivors who are facing higher rates during the pandemic than normal. So doing some of those trainings together, and when you bring an artist into that, they're able to bring their fans in a totally different way than we would alone. So we've been able to adapt in that way. We definitely miss gathering in person, are looking
Sure.
forward to having that back. But I
Yes.
will say the one upside was there was significantly less sexual violence at live concerts. That problem was sort of put on pause for a little while. So it allowed us to sort of focus on some of the other community work we do. And we've built sort of an online training that venues, festivals, artists will be able to use to train their staff up, and that's being released really soon, actually. So
Yeah.
the time off of touring gave us more time to focus on that.
Do you think that what has happened over 2020 will change people's behavior patterns when they're at concerts in the future? Do you think that there is a silver lining to that, in that maybe it would, just that being around people again is such a privilege?
Oh my gosh, I hope. I don't
Right,
know.
I hope so too. I don't know, but
Yeah, I'm not always an optimist. But I do think that one huge change that will happen for people who work in the industry is, I was actually just talking to someone else about how this time away from touring, I do think helps people realize that like touring is brutal. Performing is amazing, but all of the work around it can be really hard. And finding ways to still have a creative career and still be artists, but not rely so heavily on touring, I do think is a change that will happen. And as artists and the sort of rest of the industry supporting all of this work find ways to create a little bit more of a sustainable industry and lifestyle, I do think like some of the risk factors for violence, so the drugs, the alcohol, the like constant separation from your community, all of the power dynamics, as those start to get lessened because people remember what it is to be still and how healing that can be, and how like different your life can be when you're not constantly on the move. I do think we'll see some shifts in that way, where people are able to take a breath and still tour and still perform, but just maybe not 9 months out of the year anymore.
yeah, yeah, that's true, because it's definitely brutal. I've been on tours, and it is, while it's fun, it's also its own monster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me about too, in particular with the work you're doing, like how honored is it? I mean, to be honored, how do you feel about it? What kind of, what does this, what does it do to your spirit to receive an honor from, the She Rocks Awards, which I think obviously is a female and is such a female empowering movement. Tell me about your feelings about it.
Yeah, it's Really, really amazing. I think I'm definitely a behind the scenes person and feel very comfortable behind the scenes. But it feels like, okay, this really is important and valued, and that definitely with the work we do, sometimes we're seen as like, those people ruining the fun. And I think to remember that, like, no, we're trying to make it more fun and to make this industry stronger, and to see that recognition feels really powerful to know, okay, this is not seen as outside of the industry, but actually part of it, to be part of an award ceremony that's not about activism, but that's about music, and to have a place in that feels really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine. Do you think that people think like, well, this is just a problem for a certain gender? Or do you think people are really looking at it more unilaterally now, as that we're sort of blurring lines of gender? Do you think that we're seeing growth in that way?
I think we are. It's also, I think it isn't a women's issue is the other thing that's really important for all of us to remember. I think, we definitely see a lot of women in the industry experience it, but outside, it's 1 in 2 trans people have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime. 1 in 6 men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime. Like, this isn't a women's issue. And I think sometimes people sort of like feel scared as a man to sort of be like, oh, like, I promise I'm one of the good ones or something, but it's actually men are more likely to be a victim than a perpetrator, and we don't always remember that. And I think that reality is that there's a lot more empathy for survivors of assault than there is for perpetrators, and there's just a lot of discomfort talking about it. But the reality is just like, most people either directly have experienced or know someone who's experienced assault, and that is horrible and awful, but a huge source of empathy to tap into, because we don't want that for anyone else that we know. And people, I think, are getting a little bit more comfortable with diving into that empathy side rather than worrying about the consequences for the small number of people that are actually causing harm.
Yes. Do you think that there are people that are in the lineup this year that you could collaborate with, or that there's some maybe some stories in there that you'd want to explore with them, just knowing what you know about people or seeing the lineup? Are there people that you're really excited to maybe talk to and bring on board with you?
Yeah, I definitely am. I think that's one of the things that feels really exciting about this is it's a chance to connect with more people in the lineup as well as in the audience who
Yes.
um, feel connected to this work and want to be part of it. I think, we were sort of getting a lot of it off the ground when the pandemic landed, and so we were like, well, I guess we're hitting pause for now. But as people start to think about what their work will look like once live music is back, or even before then, that's yeah, I'm really excited for the chance to work with more people, and especially more women. A lot of the artists we've worked with actually are men, which is cool in its own right, like that there's a lot of men wanting to build that safety in. But I do think that, and rightfully so and fairly so, a lot of women who are artists sometimes don't want to be sort of like pigeonholed right into being like, oh, I'm a woman and therefore I have to like take on this issue. But I think there's starting to be more space to say, like, you can be a woman, you can be a musician, you can be an activist, you can care about these things, and it doesn't make you only that, right? Like, you can do multiple things and not get pigeonholed as much. So excited to see more women get involved in this work and not feel like that becomes their whole identity by doing that.
Yes. I think it's also really cool too that there are so many working and moving parts in the music industry. And I think what's cool about She Rocks is that, they are recognizing you for the work that you're doing, which I think is particularly wonderful. Do you feel that there's, what do you think, one of your, like, your voice is loud enough in the industry, or do you need, do you sometimes feel like it could be louder, or it's not, like, how do you feel you want to continue or move your cause forward?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's an interesting question. I definitely think it could be louder, and I think part of what feels nice about it too is there's not a lot of ego in it here, right? Like, that at the end of the day, we just want this industry to be safer for women. Like, that's it. And so some of the way we work feels really nice because people can take it up in their own way, right? Someone who cares about this work can work with us and create their own voice around it, and it can really become their own work and their own platform as well. And that feels like some of the beauty of this, is that it can be amplified but changed and just grown over time with so many creative people who have platforms, who want to use it, but who also have their own stories, right? Like there are so many women who, even if they didn't experience it in the music industry, have experiences of sexual violence, and they don't need to out themselves, but some people will want to bring that part of themselves into their performance and into their career and into their identity. And this is a pathway to do that for
Yeah.
people who want to. That really helps people connect in a different way than, going through a training or reading a policy. Like, I don't think policies are going to change the world. They're important, we need to have them, but at the end of the
Sure.
day, stories and connection are what are going to really move this forward.
So what are some steps that people can take or viewers can take to reach out to you and to your program, and how can they utilize you?
Yes. So you can go to our website, callingallcrows.org, to find more information. It's our Here for the Music campaign, is our sexual violence prevention work. You can also reach out directly to me at kim@callingallcrows.org, easy to remember. And you can connect with us. We're on all the social media platforms and everything. So really just starting to get a sense of it, but reach out. And we work with lots of different groups. We work with venues, with festivals, with promoters, managers, artists, to sort of understand what are their challenges, and how can we help them to both think about safety, but also to think about their community involvement and bettering the world for women and girls outside of venues and festival grounds as well.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm really excited for you, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, She Rocks Awards. This is like truly, truly an honor. And we're just I'm grateful to be a part of it, but so is the whole Calling All Crows team, who's, really proud of this work and proud to have it be honored alongside so many amazing women.
I know it's going to be a really great year this year. And what other hopes do you have for the upcoming year? Can you give us any insight or some things that you feel like you're maybe shuffling in the works there that you want to share?
Yeah, so some of the other work we do, a big focus of our work right now, we call it our Unlocked Voices work, and it's around mass incarceration in the US. So thinking about folks who are caged, whether it's in detention centers, in prisons, or in jails, which is particularly challenging given the pandemic spreading through those institutions. So we have some concerts and some really cool programming there, where we're working with people who are directly impacted to share their stories and to get funding there. So that's, I think, some of our exciting programming coming up that people can keep an eye out for. And if you're interested in that cause and feel connected to that, can also reach out to be involved.
Sounds great. Well, it was great having you here tonight. Enjoy the rest of the festivities.
Thank you. And it was so great to meet you and talk with you. So thanks for having me.
Nice talking to you too. And it's so funny because everything I do is usually beauty related. You look gorgeous. I love your makeup. I'm a makeup guy. So, and do you think that, I'll see if I can ask anything else too that I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
Let me ask you too, just personally, how you feel you've changed this last year, or was there something that became, something that you learned about yourself this last year that was a revelation or something?
Yeah. 2020 has put us all through the ringer. So
Sure has.
right? Yeah, I actually moved in the middle of the pandemic out to Long Beach. I was in Boston.
Wow.
Moved
Okay.
to Long Beach, California, packed up my car and drove across the country.
You could not have picked a better little town to move to.
No, it's nice and warm. I can walk to the beach. It's like 10 minutes. So that was a serious upgrade for living. But for me personally, I think there's been just some I don't know, some just real growth around like accepting that the world is chaotic, right? Like that it's particularly chaotic now, but that's never going to stop being true. And so finding grounding in myself and my family and my friends and my community, and just really building that inner grounding so that you can just sort of take what the world throws at you, has felt extra important this year. And there's been sort of different time and space to work on that, since there's nothing else to do. So that has felt, like a small silver lining of that sort of forced reflection and being still and just yeah, I spend a lot of time, I live alone, so I spend a lot of time with myself and have gotten to know myself in that way.
Yeah. It's nice to have time with yourself. I think everyone ultimately has to spend time alone,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know? So it is can be a nice it is a nice thing to learn a little bit about yourself and what you're like as a human being in that way.
it is. Yeah, it feels like a really nice change. And I had been touring quite a bit the last 2 years before that. So to go
Sure.
from, 12 person tour buses and constantly in motion to like one person apartment never leaving is a huge change, but a really welcome one in certain ways. So,
Yeah.
obviously the pandemic is bad, but the sort of forced part of just sitting still and just, healing a little bit and just sort
Right.
of being present has felt powerful.
Can I also ask you one last question just about the start of your cause? How was it that you know what was it? Was there a moment? Was there a harbinger that said this has to, you know, this has to happen? We
Yeah.
need this.
Yeah, definitely. So personally, so I'm a survivor of sexual violence. And so that, like, a decade ago, that's what prompted me to get involved in this work, and working directly with survivors, doing crisis response, but also on the prevention side of really thinking about how do you reach people who want to end this as well, and help people, give people the skills to help people out, whether it's supporting survivors or just preventing more survivors from being created. um, and so that was what prompted me into this work. But this campaign within the music industry, we had someone within our own sort of volunteer community came forward to us and said that they were assaulted at a show, that they're assaulted at a show by another fan volunteer. And it had happened years ago, but they were sort of bringing this forward because they wanted to go to a concert, but were afraid about seeing this person there, that was just like a trauma they didn't want to face. They wanted to sort of re-enter the community, but didn't know how with this person there that felt like a huge threat. And we took that really, really seriously and looked around for resources. There are incredible sexual violence prevention and response resources in the country, but they are tapped. Like, they've got a lot of work already, and they don't necessarily know the music industry in the same way and understand, what are the ways that could have been supported. So we were talking to managers about, okay, what does it really look like to blacklist someone? How do you like really go through the process of creating safety in this small instance? And once we got through that, we sort of stepped back and like, there are a lot more stories like this and a lot more people afraid to come to shows because of either past experiences, or, they're like literal people that they're afraid to run into. So that sort of made us just sit up and pay attention and think about how can we help to create, like, more proactively offer these resources to folks. And as we do that, we just have stories after story after story come
Yeah.
forward, which is powerful. I think um,
Yes.
it's definitely powerful, but it's alarming also, to think about
Sure.
all the people who've been opting out of these shows and these experiences because they're afraid to for their own safety, and to give people the courage to come back, and the not just the courage but the opportunity and the safety to re-enter such a joyful community just feels
Yes.
really important.
I think that is very important work. I love that you're doing it.
Hmm.
Well, thanks for being here and congratulations. And I'm very pleased that the She Rocks Awards is honoring you too, because I think it's really good work. I think it's one of those things that maybe a lot of people just don't realize is happening,
Mhm.
or they're so involved in their own experience that they're not aware that that can happen. So that's terrific that you're there for the business.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for these makeup tips. It really was
Amazing.
not normally part of my job, but it was a delightful thing to learn more about.
A delightful surprise. A pleasure. You look terrific.
Thank you.
Enjoy the show tonight.
Thank you. I will. You too.